Hello and welcome to Bayonne Today. Today we have a show for you that I hope will allow you to think and understand and know that as we go through life, many times we're faced with challenges and our loved ones are faced with challenges that we never expected we would have to address. Today, I have with me someone who grew up in Bayonne, who has chosen to start a new career as a counselor for drug addictions. I'd like to welcome Mary Cuozzo Fortunata to Bayonne Today.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, Mary. Welcome back to Bayonne.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about when you did live here. How old were you when you lived here?
When I was born, I lived here until I was in second grade, and then I moved just a little north of city line of Bayonne into Country Village in Jersey City.
Okay, and when you were here, what school did you go to?
I went to St. Vincent's.
Okay, you went to St. Vincent's.
St. Vincent's de Paul.
Okay, St. Vincent's Grammar School.
Correct.
Alrighty, and then through your lifetime, I know you've had varied careers. And we just discovered that you have become a certified addiction counselor,
Recovery
coach for an organization called the City of Angels.
Correct.
Now, the City of Angels, is currently located in
Hamilton, New Jersey.
And the organization itself, I know that you know some of the history of how it started, why it started, and obviously it was born of tragedy, but we're hoping that it will help people to understand that addictions can be conquered. So tell us a little bit about the founder.
The founder, Kevin Miera, he started the foundation, City of Angels, the organization, which was inspired by the loss of his son due to drugs. And this is Casey right here.
That's his son, Casey?
That's his son.
Wow. And Casey was approximately how old when he passed away?
22, I believe.
22 years old. And what was his addiction, do you know?
Heroin.
A heroin addiction.
Yes.
Okay. And probably a way to open this up would be to talk about what the parents, I'm sure, tried to do for him and apparently never got to the point where they could influence him enough, or not coming to understand the dangers and what drugs can do. And I know that you know a lot about it now because you've been studying. So what type of drugs are we talking about that are causing most of the destruction? We'll talk about New Jersey, but this is a national issue.
Right. The major epidemic right now would be heroin and opiates, which are they're the similar derivative. It's the opium, and heroin has become an epidemic. We all know heroin to be a drug of many years ago, where the face of that would be where it was looked down on. It was the bums in the street, it was the homeless, it was people from poor families, the geographics of it. And now a lot of the kids are starting with, which is what the opiate is, which is basically the same addiction as heroin would be, but they start in the pill form, which are the pain medications.
Are we talking about we're talking about medicine cabinet types of addictions?
We're talking about what you or I or anyone else may have a small procedure done, come out from, maybe a sinus surgery or any type of little procedure where you would have pain following the procedure, and the doctor would prescribe, a handful maybe to get you through the few days, 3 times a day for a few days. And some people are also on a maintenance program if they have a problem with their back or sciatica. They may wind up on some type of maintenance program with the Percocet, pain medication type of things. So what we found was the big problem now with kids is that this has become a street drug. The pills have become something that these kids know that they can go out and they can take a pill from the medicine cabinet that they know is there and get $25 for it. Because, yeah.
Okay.
So this is where it poses the problem. And it's also, obviously, as well, they, for their first time, many times, these kids try that pain medication, that opiate, out of their own parents' medicine cabinet. So this is where it all starts. And it can start, as young as in grammar school, because this is when these kids are starting to experiment. And this is such a dangerous, dangerous form of a drug, because not like years ago, kids started, a little drinking, marijuana. They're going straight to something that is highly, highly addictive and dangerous. And the immaturity of it and the value of it on the street, once the addiction becomes prevalent in their life, they start to get into sales and illegal activity. There's, unfortunately, many crooked doctors out there. And it's just a very, very scary epidemic that's happening. And once these young people who don't have hundreds of dollars sitting in their pocket to go out and buy $25 pills, they either get into the sales where they're supporting their habit, or they're getting into, they just turn to buying heroin, which is cheaper.
Oh, really?
And,
cheaper is
yes.
cheap. Oh, heroin would be cheaper.
On
Okay.
the average, you can buy on the street, the value of one pill of any of these opiate pills are $25, which for the same high, they can get 5 bags of heroin.
Really?
So it stretches the high for them. It's actually something that is, economically is more, financially it makes more sense on the street to be buying the heroin. And then eventually it's not enough that you're snorting it, which is what they do. They start taking the pills, they start cutting up, chopping the pills and snorting the pills, which takes them into buying the heroin to snort, and then it leads to the injections.
Okay, so we're seeing this grow from taking a simple pill out of the medicine cabinet at home. Parents innocently would place them in the medicine cabinet, not even dreaming what would be going on, or knowing that their child is at a point where they know a lot about drugs and the parents might not even be aware of it.
Correct.
Which of course would be something now that, bringing this point up is a good point for people to realize that your medicine cabinet is an arsenal for destruction if you are innocently taking pills because you are in pain, as you said, either from a surgery or just because you're chronically maintaining your pain level. You're talking about heroin, and I know we did some research here, and you mentioned that the city of Jersey City is ranked number 3.
Number 3 in the state, and as we know, it's a very highly populated city. It's a very large inner city, which Camden would be number 1.
Camden,
yes.
Camden is 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Jersey City falls number 3, which we also know that Bayonne is an adjacent suburb right directly next to Jersey City. So we can't discount the fact that although we don't have the population that Jersey City does, we are right next to them. So it is with us as well. It's just that we don't rank because of the usage percentage or the usage count in the city itself.
Well, the close proximity to Jersey City obviously would make it easy for a person to go over the city line if they were interested in finding, some type of a drug and purchasing it there. And not to say that it couldn't be happening here as well. The point of the show is to let everyone know that it's happening everywhere and that we need to be aware of the seriousness of what we're talking about, because I don't think any one of us can actually say that they haven't been affected in some way, shape, or form, either by a drug overdose or by knowing someone or even knowing an adult that uses too much pain medication, and you start to see a life start to shift and change, and it becomes obvious that for whatever reason these people are in pain, and not only physical pain. We're talking mental anguish. We're talking about the stressors in society, which was something else that you had mentioned.
Yes. And also, psychologically, it's been learned that approximately 80% of people who become addicted to whether it's alcohol, drugs, any addiction, they're 80%. If they were diagnosed by a professional, there would be a dual diagnosis for whether it be ADHD or bipolar disorder, depression.
So you're saying that these are the things that would lead someone, would lead them into
the weakness of falling into addiction. Yes, and also their background in society. A lot of the times we're exposed to things that unfortunately we want the cycle repeats itself, right? Or
learned behavior.
Learned behavior. I think an example from your parents is a big thing too, and that also has to do with your upbringing. Then also genetic disposition comes into play. So there's a lot of things involved in what actually makes an addict, and what will be their strength trying to get into a recovery situation. And you had mentioned that, with Kevin, which we have gotten into discussion, that when you're a parent, if you don't have the resources and you don't know what to do, it's really, the struggle is that much harder to care for your child and know what to do.
Exactly.
And this City of Angels organization, which is not-for-profit, and they offer such a wide range of services, which one of which is intervention, which is a huge thing. Red, who is our director.
We did expect another guest. Yes.
Of interventions I was hoping he was able to get here, but obviously with his job or his title, he gets into some really serious stuff, and he is involved in a few things that have, he'd need to be redirected today. But he's great. He works in Florida. He goes on interventions out of state. He works with families with a phone call, and it's all non-for-profit. But as far as just early intervention, and I'm very big on, and what I would like to be most involved in starting what I'm doing is raising awareness, advocacy.
Which is why I'm very thankful that you came up for the show.
Right, because this is part of it.
Yes.
Raising awareness. A lot of parents, a lot of adults have no idea what's going on out there with the schools and the kids, and how young it's starting, and how really dangerous it is, because it's not like when we were kids. It's not like when we were 13. It's starting at 10, starting at 11. It's much more dangerous. It's much more addictive what these kids are doing, and there's new things coming out on the street every single day that we hear of. We just heard of an overdose in Lacey of a new drug that we didn't even know of.
Okay.
And it's out on the street, so it's every day keeping up to speed with what is out there on the streets, because it is unreal, the synthetic things that are just popping up everywhere.
Now, the awareness that I've noticed on Facebook, Mary's on Facebook, and she constantly is putting out there all of the new. I mean, it's really serious, and it's kind of shocking when you realize how prevalent it is in society now. I do know that now they're giving the police officers and medical people a drug.
Yes.
What is that? Do you know the name of that drug?
It's called Narcan.
Narcan.
And it actually is to reverse the effect of an overdose of heroin or opiate, that type of overdose. And it's an injection. It is now being trained to police officers, EMTs, firemen, as an emergency response. And what they are trying to do is make it to where families are able to also, who have children in the home that are those types of drug users, to be able to respond to them if they go into overdose. And it's saved many lives already. And it's just recently started to become just protocol training for police.
Have you found, I mean, I know that there's a stigma attached to drug addictions, and I do know, I remember as a kid, when you thought drug addict, my God, those people were considered the lowest people, in the gutter. And no one ever really looked into why they were taking drugs, or you never really thought of people who take drugs, people who drink. I mean, they're in pain. You know, people use drugs because they're trying to adjust, they're trying to fit in. And when you know enough about the psychological reasons behind why people are doing that, then to me, it seems as though you might have a better chance of helping them. Now, your program, let's say, now the gentleman we mentioned, his name is Tom, in parentheses, Redneck, I guess that's his nickname, Clark. If he couldn't be with us because he did get called for an emergency intervention, but his story, I read his story, and my goodness.
Amazing story.
It's an amazing story. It's someone who took a tragic life and realized it would just become more tragic unless he did something about it. And he flipped it into a very different way of living and being, and sharing not only his physical addiction, but I read it, and his need to have a spiritual connection again, believing in God and believing that he was worthwhile, because he said he felt like he wasn't worth anything.
Right.
And in taking the drugs, it made him feel important, and it made him feel good for a small amount of time. But the devastation that it caused in his life was horrible.
Which is, you know, that is usually the story. Drug addict, it is, it's self-medication, and that's the story. I mean, people that have feelings that drugs actually just make them feel better, and you have to find a different avenue to take when you want to find happiness and make yourself feel better, and know that it's not drugs, because that's only making you worse in the end.
Exactly. So what avenues do they teach you now that you're a coach, you're a certified coach?
Well, what you learn is, you know, you have to change your lifestyle. It's a lifestyle change. You can go into, now, many people have had several attempts in recovery, in and out of rehab.
Is that common? That's a common thing.
It is not a one-time deal usually. It takes a few at least, at minimal. Attempts, and you know, and hopefully they get it right, and hopefully you don't have the situations where they can't get it right and you wind up having a loss. You know, I myself have dealt with it with a couple of very, very close people to me, and it's devastating, but at the same time, not having the knowledge of what is really happening, and not understanding it, and having a person that you know needs help, and you're trying to just, you know, grasp at straws to try to figure out what you can do to get them on the right track. But, you know, now we look and we see these kids. I've posted several links of kids lost to drug addiction, and not only, you know, in inner cities and low income.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that
the demographics are not what we think.
Okay, what are they then?
It could be anywhere from, you know, the richest towns in the state. You know, we have doctors, lawyers, business owners, corporation, you know, presidents. We have people who have kids that drive Mercedes. They have anything they could want in life, beautiful homes, and it's not prejudice.
Yes.
These kids are still going to experiment with the same type of drugs as a kid who struggles financially. So the addiction comes from just the experimentation of a teenager, of a kid, of someone with, you know, some type of mental issue, you know, a psychological issue that, you know, could start when they're 13 or could start when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s.
So you're talking about a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So as a counselor, you know, someone comes to you and, you know, I mean, unfortunately, the beautiful pictures that we're looking at here, I really need to recognize the fact that, you know, when you see these pictures and you see children who, you see the grammar school pictures with a couple of teeth missing, and then you see when as they're growing, and then they become teenagers, and, you know, the hope for a parent to look at their child, and you can see, I mean, just by looking at these children, you can see that they were well taken care of. You know, they weren't really neglected. It could have been one time that someone took a drug, and that was the last time they ever took it, because, you know, it caused their death.
Yeah.
The family situation, I mean, do you counsel the families as well?
Well, there is family support, which is a big thing. We have, um, it's such a large team of volunteers that everyone works in a different facet. So we have people who work more strongly with the families and family support, more closely with intervention, more closely with people in recovery. We do hold our own group meetings and social functions, and we do races, you know, 5Ks. And
So you provide a social outlet too?
Yes.
Is that part of changing the lifestyle?
It is, because
Okay.
what you have to do is, I think that's what takes so many times probably for a person to come out, and they think they can be around the same people in the same atmosphere, and they fall into the same thing. They have to learn to look into different places, and they need to learn how to turn to different a different social life, make different friends, get involved with the program that help them. For example, COA. We have people who now are still in classes. They still attend meetings for AA, and they also are in you know, recovery coach classes, because that's part of the 12-step program.
What 12? Now, what program is this? Is
The
this
12-step program is the program that is followed by the addicts in recovery. Long term, we like to say recoveries, which is a discussion also that we have, that we call it, you know, anonymous, and they stand up and they say, introduce themselves, my name is so-and-so and I am an addict.
So it follows the same protocol as Gamblers Anonymous, as
Correct.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Correct.
Okay.
It's all the same thing, because it's just the basics, and it's just a guideline to where if you're going to, your success rate is much better, much better, if you go and you continue following that 12 step into maintenance of your recovery. And then a part of recovery is also helping others. That is another thing that a recovery is always better off and have much more a better success rate if they are helping others get through, you know, come out of addiction and get into recovery, because it's rewarding and it keeps them focused on doing positive and making positive and staying away from the negativity of their former, you know, their former addiction.
I've heard that. That
Yeah.
is a way for people to keep themselves on a track where they know that they're going to remain healthy. Is it more of like a mentor kind of a thing? Do you match people
Well, you
up?
can be a
or
sponsor. Sponsors are, you know, for people in recovery, where you have a sponsor and you go through rehab, and they basically are there. They've been there, they've done that. Now, a recovery coach doesn't necessarily have to be a, you know, recovering addict. They basically are someone that's either an ally of addiction, an ally of recovery.
Now, what does that
and
mean?
It's a person that wants to be part of the alliance against addictions and drugs, and that, you know, the whole thing. So that would be me. And you also have people that have had very close, whether it's family members, you know, parents, children, you know, husbands, wives, that have been affected within their home. And, you know, my class was a wide range, a very huge variety of people, 21 people, and everyone has their own story.
I'm sure.
Who lost their children. I had two women in the class that lost their kids. Mothers with children who are addicts, fathers with children who are addicts, former recoveries, we call them, and everyone has a story. And what I really wanted to stress about City of Angels is that we are really trying to promote, and I'm trying to promote.
And you're doing a very good job
Thank
of
you.
it. I
I'm
have to say,
trying.
Mary.
Mary Cuozzo, Cuozzo,
Okay.
coach on Facebook, and I set up my own private group, which is private. No one can see any of it unless you are in the private group by request or invitation. So, I just want to get the word out there. And my thing is not only education, but I want people to know that we have to break the taboo of what a drug addict and alcoholic is. Because now, it started anonymous and it started hush hush, and it still is hush hush by many, many families. And for sometimes good reasons. I mean, would you want to know that your doctor or someone that you're dealing with on a professional level is actually in recovery? So, that it's a touchy subject, but we also have to stop making people, keep it so quiet. We have to speak out, and we have to, educate and everyone be aware of what's going on.
Talking about education, I had looked into it a little bit, and I'm wondering, do you feel the education system in kids in schools, do you think that they're teaching them enough about this?
I think it's tough with kids because, number one, kids think they're invincible. So to drill into their immature heads that, just say no, don't try anything, is, we're fooling ourselves, because it's still the same majority is going to experiment. And what we really need to try to get them to understand is that this is much more dangerous than they realize. And that is part of what.
So you're feeling that the school systems probably need to have a program that approaches it in a different way. It's just like the Just Say No or the DARE programs. Maybe they need to expand on it a little bit more. One other thing, we probably will have you come back again. I know that you mentioned that you may be coming up into the Hudson County area, that there may be an organization, you may bring your organization up here and possibly have something closer. But anyone who's listening who might need your services would just reach out to you through City of Angels, and you would be happy to work with anyone in the entire state. Correct?
We can definitely work with anyone by phone. Absolutely call for intervention help, for family support.
And that the intervention is 24/7, correct?
Yes. The only downside to not having a facility in Hudson County as of yet, which we're going to be working on it. That's next. Right now we're bringing it to Toms River, Ocean County area. That's the project that's happening now that I hope is really on its feet within the next couple of months.
Well, we welcome you back. We look forward to seeing you again. We want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you've taken notes. I hope you're going to leave here a little more lighthearted and a little more educated. And I'd like to thank you so much, Mary, for coming and sharing all of this information with us.
Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome. How'd you do?